You're ready.
Okay. Apologies for the late start. The time is 6:40, and I'm calling the meeting of the Human Relations Commission to order. This is Thursday, August 22nd, and we will get underway with a roll call.
Felix?
Present.
Kevin?
Present.
Connor?
Present.
Ellie is absent. Amir?
Oh, sorry.
Lainey? Here. Dima?
Here.
Edgar?
Present.
Daniel?
Here.
Kate?
Present.
Michael?
Present.
Councilmember Partida is here. And we've got Sheesh, our former DJUSD ex officio member here just for a few minutes.
Thank you. We have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And I would entertain a motion unless there are any amendments. I just have one note, which is with respect to regular items, number 6. There is item D, creation of subcommittees, where it says the commission will establish subcommittees. I think, in fairness, we should say may, since that decision hasn't yet been made yet by the commission. So with that minor revision, I would ask for a motion to approve unless there are other revisions.
Given that note by Kevin, I would like to motion that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Anybody? Second by Mimi.
Does that work? Yeah.
Yes, you have to
Wait a second.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, the agenda is approved. Moving right along then to brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and liaisons. We have our city council liaison, Gloria Partida, here, along with city staff. And under that item, we also have Ashish Lama. So, Carrie, let me just ask you if you could make any announcements on behalf of staff or any other notes you want to offer?
I don't have any announcements at this time.
Okay. Then, Councilmember Partida, is there anything?
I don't have anything for the time.
Very good. So I'm going to open it up to the rest of the commissioners, but before we do that, I'm just going to take the prerogative of the chair and pick up on the bullet point. We have Ashish Lama with us tonight. For those of you who don't know Ashish, Ashish is an outgoing ex officio member for the student DJUSD officer. And it is a great privilege to have Ashish back with us, if only for a cameo appearance tonight. We have a certificate of appreciation for Ashish that recognizes his significant contributions to the Human Relations Commission, including that his active participation in local events to share information about the Commission's function, his focus on amplifying student voices and involvement by serving as a student representative and contributing to various subcommittees. I personally would just note that Ashish really, I think, stood out especially with respect to his contributions to the MLK event celebration in January, which was, like, in my mind, sort of above and beyond the call of duty. Just one of Ashish's many contributions. We really enjoyed having him with us. And Ashish, we are sorry to see you go. You have set a very high bar for whoever is going to succeed you as a student representative for DJUSD. And we hope that you will come back and share your future accomplishments and perspectives with us. Thank you so much for your service to the City of Davis. Further ado, and I wanted to open it up also then for other commission members. Do we all pick it up?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Seat of honor. Standing seat of honor.
Wait, one more, I want to not get our owl in the way here. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Jerry. They just come back as a commission. Thank you again, Ashish. We just open it up for other announcements from commissioners. Anything that folks want to add? This is a time for folks to make some brief general announcements, to share information. Okay.
Brief general announcement from Davis-Turner Unified School District. We're in the last week of summer, anyway, Monday starts, the school year starts again, and we're excited to bring everyone back together. Staff has been gathering, but I just wanted to share that this Wednesday, that would be yesterday, over 500 instructional staff, both certificated teachers and paraeducators, participated at 4 different sites in a full-day training on mitigating bias in universal design for learning. So mitigating bias in the classroom as a tool for lowering barriers to learning. And really, it happened thanks to a lot of organizing and a lot of purposefulness from the Instructional Services Office, but also from district leadership, supported by the board. And really has been in preparation for a long time, but was an incredible day, and I think many would say was a watershed for the district. So it's the beginning then of a year-long series of monthly follow-ups to that training, but really the first time we were able to do it so universally. Really, really thrilled to have been part of that and to see it happen.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Others? Any other brief announcements before we move on with the agenda? Okay. Seeing none at this time, then we will move on to item number 4, public comment. This is the time where members of the public may address the commission on matters that are not listed on the agenda or are listed on the consent calendar. I guess I would just maybe also offer that I observe that the city council seems to have a practice of allowing people to also speak on items later on the agenda that they might not be able to stay for, which I think is a civilized practice. So I would invite people in that category to also use this time. Folks have 3 minutes. We've got a timer right here, and please come forward and offer your comment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Lisa Baumeister, and I am a community member and a mother of children who were born and raised and educated here. I'm coming to share my concern with you about the name of an initiative which you are familiar with, or which will, I understand, come up later in the evening, the Hate-Free Together initiative. And I became aware of it recently, and I have to say I'm concerned about the name of the initiative, and I'll tell you why. The lens that I'm coming from is one of having recently taken an extensive course on nonviolent communication. You may or may not be familiar with Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication methods. And it's a powerful way of bringing people together where they need to understand each other's feelings, needs, requests in a way that does not use judgment and aggressive language. And I have not only seen it in practice, I have practiced it myself, and it is powerful. If groups like ex-combatants in the IDF, ex-combatants on the Palestinian side could come together using those principles, I think community members in Davis could do that also. I'm concerned that the title of this program, Hate Free Together, already puts this aggressive stance on what I'm sure is not meant to be an aggressive initiative. The next word in it that I see on the banners, or at least one in town, is condemn hate. So of course we don't want hate, but when we use aggressive language like that, we're creating a certain kind of presence. And if what we're really wanting to do is create change, create understanding, decrease hate, I don't think that's going to benefit that effort. That's all I wanted to say. Alan did me the favor of making copies of the book written by the gentleman who started the movement, Marshall Rosenberg, who is not alive anymore, but his program as well, and still going strong. So anyway, I will put these out here if anybody wants them afterwards. And thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Lisa.
Good evening. I'm Hiram Jackson. I'm on the school board, but I'm actually here in my capacity as part of the Measure T, Yes on Measure T campaign, which is a local initiative on the November ballot. I think you all may know that there are funds available to build a library in South Davis, the Walnut Park branch, and that is being constructed through grants from the federal government, from the state, the county, and even a little from the city. And so that's the funds are there to build the library. Measure T is a local parcel tax of $49 that is to make the regular operations of that branch possible. And I just want to make it clear, this is just for the operations, not for the constructions. If it doesn't pass, well, the library will be built in South Davis, and there's a high likelihood that funds that normally support the Mary Stevens branch may be partially used to maybe keep it open for a limited amount of time in South Davis. Also, reducing the hours in the regular branch there. So if it doesn't pass, then we all, lose out by having more limited hours. So the passage of Measure T is important for funding really both libraries. I think we all know what libraries offer us. They are obviously books and other resources, newspapers, magazines, so that we may not necessarily have to purchase them ourselves. We can share them. It also these days has Wi-Fi internet access in case it's not available from your home, computers if perhaps an internet device is unavailable. And of course, during the summertime, it can be hot and it can be a cool place to hang out. The Walnut Park branch is going to be built in South Davis near Montgomery Elementary, which is the elementary site that has the largest concentration of students who come from lower income families, from Spanish speaking families, and who are basically coming from working class families as well. So this really is an equitable benefit for our community for that reason. Many of those families can partake of the Walnut Park branch library after school or whenever it is appropriate and available to them. It needs 2/3 to pass, and I think you may see that it will look like a very popular item campaign, but if it comes in at 66%, that's not enough. It needs 67%. I'm here because you all are engaged members of the community, and I hope you'll vote yes on Measure T. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Alan Hirsch. In terms of the library, they're building in South Davis. People talk about the freeway widening, induced demand, you widen the freeway, people drive more. Well, if you put a library in South Davis, the kids will read more. Induced demand. And that's what Larnley came into that. Suggestion about how you meet. The Human Relations Commission is all about human relations, and human relations are large, communications are a tremendous amount are nonverbals. And the structure you're at, this long line, you can't see one another, you can't face one another. So I would suggest that your commission has to be sitting in a room around a round table so you can see one another face to face, because the nonverbals are really important. Another thought was, again, the framing on the hate versus, I think what we're really facing in this community is a lot of fear, and fear accentuated turns to hate. So I would suggest, I've written you on this, that fear is the real thing. And we don't have hate crimes so much in Davis, it's fear crimes. People do something and they make other people afraid. The real damage done when that Israeli flag was torn down and set fire was the fear that was created. That was the real crime. We need to address fear so people feel safe in this community. So I think the hate doesn't acknowledge what's going on. The hate can come out of fear. So we need to address that. And I suggest maybe the first step, and I can't tell other people what to do, is a discussion about hate incidents. Hate is about you did this. Fear is about I feel this. So let's try to talk about these statements with I statements. I feel fear. I saw this. I did this versus you did that. They did this. This other thing. So using I statements versus you statements. It might be a way of beginning to change the dialogue to a more reparative sort of thing where we hear one another. Thank you for all your volunteering. I've seen all your resumes and your applications. This is an amazing group that you put together here. Face one another so you can really communicate better.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Angela Mayo, and I've come here today, well, I've come to a couple of meetings, and I come specifically today because I wanted to put something forward to find out maybe if you all would be able to direct and figure out maybe an answer. The City of Davis has a fair housing complaint form, and I come because I received a correspondence from a city staff member, and it was with regard because I had placed several fair housing complaint forms, and I got a letter finally of correspondence because I have been dealing with the city since 2022. And this particular staff member I have dealt with continuously for the last year. The response that I got finally, after having to send a letter to the assistant city manager, was a little over the top. And the letter, and what I'm going to do is I'll say this. The letter was not based on facts. The letter contained misrepresentations throughout the letter, 3 pages in all. The letter contained defamatory and malicious statements. And it is a public document. And it's not the first time that this particular employee has done this. This has been an ongoing thing for over a year. This is the first time that I've got it in writing other than recording. And I don't think anybody should ever have to be treated like this. And I understand what fair housing is, and I understand what a complaint is. If you read the letter, and this is what I'm going to do. I sent a letter dated May 22nd, 2023, sent via certified mail. I sent a letter dated June 14, 2023, sent via certified mail. I sent a letter dated January 28, 2024, via certified mail. I sent another letter on April 2nd, 2024, via certified mail. I sent another letter on July 9th, 2024. Finally, I sent the last letter, and I sent it to the assistant city manager, dated August 7th, 2024. I sent it via certified mail, priority, and I finally did get a response from this particular employee. The original complaints was given to her back. First complaint was made officially in May 3rd, 2023. I made an official complaint on this form that I was told by her to do on February 6th. I actually hand-delivered it to the city clerk's office, and I also put it in the mail, and she received it through certified mail. The incidents and her conduct is it's disheartening, and it's the affordable housing manager. I don't believe that I'm the only person who has had this kind of behavior towards her. I don't believe I've done anything to anybody. I am just asking questions, and I'm trying to find affordable housing. And I do understand what discrimination is, and I do understand when you try to tell somebody that maybe the program isn't going the way it should go, that you should be able to get some kind of communication other than aggression. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand a 5-page summary of everything that's happened. I'm going to hand over to Ms. Dyer a copy of the letter that I received from her and all of the other letters that I sent to the city, so that maybe somebody can, I guess, look at maybe how the fair housing thing is, because I don't think that she is, in my personal opinion, I think it needs to be handled at another part of the city, or even needs to be outsourced.
Thank you, Angela. And if you could just stay around for a minute, I'd like to just chat with you a second. We're going to conclude on the public comment now, but if you could stay for some portion of the meeting.
I'll just say for the rest of the meeting. You're fine, sure.
Okay.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and we do not at this point have further public comment that I see. We also allow for written comments to be submitted. I just want to check with staff. Carrie, do we have any written comments suggested? All right, then we've concluded with public comment. We move now to the consent calendar. There are 2 items on the consent calendar, being the 2 previous sets of minutes from the prior meetings, and just would like to see if there's any suggestions for changes, corrections to the previous minutes. Maybe we'll take them separately. The first item is the minutes from, which meeting is the first one? The June 27th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? And I guess I would just maybe, if I might, I think it looks like a typo, the word tribe in the discussion of the land acknowledgement, I think should be plural, tribes. Because I think there's more than one tribe that was involved in the creation of the proposed land acknowledgement. But other than that, I didn't see anything. Does anybody else have anything from the June 27th minutes? If not, approval would be one.
I move to approve the June 27th meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, then the next item is the special meeting minutes from August 13th. And if there are no changes, corrections to those minutes, a motion to approve would be wonderful. Motion by Amir, second by anyone.
I'll second.
Second by Connor. Thank you, Connor and Amir. All those in favor then of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, minutes are approved from prior two meetings. Moving then on to, let me get back to my agenda here. Regular items, the first item we have is A, public forum on recent hate incidents. This is a standing item on this matter. And we have allotted 15 minutes tonight for this item. This is a time where both members of the public and the commissioners can share information, concerns, or improvements or other programs that are being undertaken, such as those in the GJUSD, which is nice to hear. Thank you, Kate. So I will open it up then to commission members and members of the public to address us on recent hate incidents in the Davis community. And if there are none, that would be wonderful too. Yeah.
So just as a new member of this commission, so this is a standing item.
It is.
Right. So I did not prepare anything for this meeting, but knowing that it's a standing item, I think that it's important that the commission is aware of many of the anti-Semitic events over the past year. I have a presentation that I would be more than happy to share. So I'll plan on doing that next month.
Okay. Other comments, observations, incidents, programs, thoughts? Connor?
Yeah, so I did want to mention that there have been some transphobic banner drops recently, and just generally like increasing transphobia, especially around some events that were associated with the Olympics. So that has happened within the past month.
Continuing issue in the community. All right. Anyone else then before we ask for public comment? Okay, let me open it up then for public comment.
The world we live in is defined by the media we consume. And a hate incident in South Davis, I probably wouldn't see it unless it's picked up by the media. But a hate incident, a tweet by a leader of a significant political party in this country that is anti-Semitic, that affects probably more people in Davis than a comment or something on the chalk on campus or whatever. I don't reflect on that because Davis is not a bubble or an installation. We are bombarded by these sorts of things, and I think we should be aware of the greater influence, and they actually can be more profound and more influential and reach more people than an incident in the city of Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else then on this standing item? As I said, I'd be happy to hear that there isn't a need for further discussion on new, this is recent hate incidents. Obviously, there are continuing concerns and tensions in the community that we will continue to strive to address, and we'll hear later also from the colleagues at Avery together. Okay, seeing no further public comment or further comments from the commission, we will move on then to 6B. This is a staff review of updated Human Relations Commission functions and resolutions for both the new folks and for those continuing members. Since this, we are now operating under a new resolution, and we thought it might be useful to just kind of touch back on the council's new direction to the HRC. Carrie, let me then turn it over to you if you can walk us through this.
Thank you, Kevin. So before you, up on the screen and in front of your seats, you should have the updated resolution, which was effective July 1st. We wanted to spend a few minutes tonight just reviewing the updated functions of the HRC. I'm so sorry. Check on your device. That's. Thank you, Zoe. Yay, we're learning new things tonight. We'll get better. Thank you, everybody, for your patience as well. So up there, you've got the resolution that was effective July 1st, and tonight we wanted to just spend a few minutes highlighting the updated functions. I think C will be particularly relevant for our item that we're going to move into, which is the Hate Free Together item. So we'll spend more time during the Hate Free Together item sort of addressing that, but for the purpose of this item, just wanted to review the functions A, B, and see if there was any other clarification, comments, that sort of thing needed. So study and make recommendations around equity and discrimination in the city, including gathering information from affected individuals and connecting them to the appropriate agency, official, or process. C, conduct and support as appropriate community forums and activities to prevent and address discrimination and promote diversity, equality, and justice relevant to the goals and policies of the City Council. And C, serve as the lead commission regarding the city's component of community engagement of the Hate Free Together initiative. So as I said, for item C, we've got our Director of Community Engagement, Jenny Tan, here tonight, wherever she is. She'll be joining us up here to do a presentation, and we'll wrap some of that conversation and what that will mean into her presentation. But for items, or letters A and B, I wanted to know if there was any discussion, questions, etc., that you wanted to chat about.
At the risk of being redundant, for item B, which definitely seems like it should be in our purview, I continue to not understand at what point we can make decisions as a commission to create an event and facilitate that event, and in what circumstances we would need to corroborate our intentions with the city council, or collaborate. I guess if the city council is here, that helps a lot. Of course, if the city council representative is here, but I'm just wondering if it would make sense for that to be more clarified, or if we could sort of as a sub-point get a little more clarification around, clearly we can continue to carry out the events that everybody knows that we carry out, but if we wanted to host new events, what would be the process by which, for example, we could get approval for doing that, or would we need approval for doing that?
The city clerk is sitting behind us, and she might be glaring at me right now, but I was going to ask if she'd like to respond to that. Sorry, Zoe.
In general, the commission is not authorized to create and host an event outside of collaborating with city staff or upon direction by city council. There are a number of events that are recurring events that this commission is, they either co-host with the city, or that they have, a table at farmer's market around a certain time of the year or something like that. So there are some ongoing events that are already pre-approved, for lack of a better definition. If there were to be a proposal for something new, you would have to define what that is, what the commission's role would be, propose that, staff could discuss that, we could bring a proposal to city council. So it would have to be more of a process to get something approved. You as an entity, a commission, you do not have the authority to create something by yourself.
Can I ask a question? So the Police Accountability Commission does have outreach events, and they are not necessarily prescribed, right? So they will decide on a topic or types of engagement that they want to build better relationships between the police department and the community.
And there is a process that they follow, and sometimes they will have multiple agenda items where they talk about what would they like their outreach event for the year to be. And sometimes they have a subcommittee that's kind of researching, coming up with ideas. Sometimes they coordinate similar to what you have already been doing with your Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King Jr. events every year. So it would be a similar process to that. But it's something that it is a very public item that they discuss, and then they have to coordinate that with the city staff to get those events hosted, scheduled, published, all of that. So it's not something that they do by themselves, but it is something that is specifically one of their tasks that they're assigned to do, similar to yours, which is like the community forum and activities. So they also have a public-facing outreach component to their commissions. These are usually the only two commissions that are very public-facing as far as hosting forums of that nature would be HRC and then the Police Accountability Commission. So this is a specific task that you've been given, but what that would be and how you want to do that, we would have to discuss it. You have these recurring events. So would it be in addition to, instead of, we'd have to kind of look at everything in a comprehensive manner and in context with some of the things that the city is already doing and some of the city council priorities that they might have. So it would be something that would be a discussion.
Okay, please.
Since you're here,
I'm here.
I just thank you for the clarification. I think that is really helpful. What if the commission were to produce, say, a resource, like a pamphlet or something? What type of approval process would that have to go through? Because that's not an event, but it's something that's also public-facing, going out, and so obviously representative of the city. Is there a particular process that has to go?
It would be a similar process. It would be having an agendized item on your regular public meeting. So you kind of create a task. You might create a subcommittee that really wants to do research. And if you're creating, let's say, a resource where you're just compiling information that already exists. Here's a website that people should go to. Here are resources that are offered by nonprofits. That's probably a quicker, easier process than if you were creating content on your own. If you're creating content on your own, that would be something, and again, that would be really a collaboration with what is going on at the staff level already that you may not know about, what is a council priority that you could actually help them to further some of their efforts. So it's not a no, never. It's we really have to understand what it is that you're proposing, what the commission role is versus what the staff role is versus what we have the resources to actually do. But I do think that's a great project to talk about.
Other questions, comments? Yeah.
So is that time just to discuss the procedures, or can we actually propose some items that fall within those bullet points?
This agenda item is actually just, if you looked at what's on your agenda, it's just talking about the functions of your commission. If you wanted to have, let's say, a general outreach discussion, you would schedule that. We'd come up with some very specific language for your agenda, and it would be more of almost like a brainstorming session. What it is that we already do, where do we think we might have a lack of some kind or some new ideas that we haven't thought of. So it would be more of just discussion. And then if there's something that the commission thinks that they might have a role, can they do some research for the city? Would they be willing to, reach out to, you name it, check some websites to see what other cities do, what other entities are already doing, that maybe we could co-host together. So it would be something that we would talk about, but you would start with having an agendized item where you talk about just in general outreach. What do we already do? Where do we think there's luck?
So I would like to propose that our next meeting we have a potential new initiative agenda item that we can discuss.
We are definitely, I think, going to have that conversation.
And so you have on every agenda, you'll have an opportunity at the very end of your meeting where you can talk about your upcoming items. And make sure that you get what you've already been assigned to do and maybe what your events that you have that are time sensitive. Make sure you look at everything that you have to do and then where you have time to fit in. And make sure that all of the commission is in support of adding this to the agenda and that we have time to really do it. If you have other things, let's say you have 3 regular items and everything might be half an hour, we try not to have meetings that are more than between 2 and 3 hours. There's kind of this bandwidth level. So we just have to look at the agendas in that way.
Okay, I don't think we're going to exhaust the topic here, or certainly not in the abstract, but as we move forward, I think I can fairly speak on behalf of the commission and say we look forward to the conversation with staff and the council. Mary, was there anything
No,
else?
I was just going to remind folks that, you know, when you do this, when you want to add to the agenda, it's on the long range, which is the last item on the agenda. And I think that the question before you right now is the authorizing resolution. And so I just want to make sure that everyone has had everything they wanted to say about this authorizing resolution, because that's the topic before you.
Right. Yep. Carrie, was there anything else that you wanted to add? We're just really reviewing the resolution that the council has passed, and this is an opportunity for folks to ask general questions about it. We may have specific questions in the context of a specific initiative or program idea, and we will get those questions answered in context. But for the purposes of general conversation, are there other general questions, comments?
I just want to confirm that C, the discussion around Hate Free Together, is being something we'll do next. And even in this, just covering what is our role, that's going to happen in the next item.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be ample opportunity with Jenny's presentation to then delve into that a little bit more about what the commission's role will be in terms of community engagement as addressing the functions. Thanks, Dean.
Okay, with that, then, I would suggest that we bring this item to a close and move on. I'm sorry,
Public comment.
I believe Carrie has got seen me that we also invite public comment on this issue. And seeing none, we can now move the item to a close and move forward with the next item. This is 6C, Hate Free Together update. I'm sorry. Yes, and commission function discussion. We have allotted 40 minutes for that, and we are very privileged to have Jenny Tan from the city staff here to present for us. For those of you who are new to the commission, Jenny, this is a follow-up to a presentation that Jenny did back in, I'm going to say March maybe, or February, where you sort of previewed and gave us a kind of an overview of some of the Hate Free Together website and other programming that was just being rolled out. And we thought it would be appropriate to have a kind of a further conversation. In the meantime, we now also have this new resolution from the city that is putting us in more direct relationship, and we are really looking forward to that. I do want to allow time for questions from the commission, so I don't know if you have a prepared presentation, Jenny, but if you do, we've got 40 minutes allotted for this, and maybe so we could do maybe 10 or 15 at most, if
I will not
possible.
take up the full 40 minutes. I will try to keep it to 15.
We are looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you to the commission for having me here tonight. My name is Jenny Tan. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the City of Davis. I am also on the Hate Free Together Executive Committee representing the city. With me tonight in the audience, I also have 2 other members of our Executive Committee. We have Sheila Allen, who is a deputy for District 4. She's also the former HRC Chair and Commissioner. She also is the incoming District 4 Supervisor starting in January of 2025. We also have Megan Macklin, who is the Director of Campus Climate and Inclusion Initiatives. for the Office of Campus and Community Relations. And we also have two other members that are here, Kate Snow with DJUSD and Michael Villalobos from UC Davis as well. They're new additions to the Hate Free Together Executive Committee. I will go a little bit more into that in a little bit. I did want to just give a brief overview of the history and sort of how we got here for some of our newer commissioners, talk about some of the work that's been happening this year, and then sort of conclude with where we're at right now and sort of like maybe some potential next steps to take. So this initiative really started because of COVID-19. COVID-19 really required an unprecedented level of collaboration between UC Davis, the City of Davis, and Yolo County. First with Healthy Davis together, and then later with Healthy Yolo together. And through that collaboration, we realized that we are all stronger together when we can pool our resources, pool our staffing, as well as the work that we do in the community. Once COVID started to wane, we started in late 2022, joined forces again between the city, the county, and the campus to the next rising epidemic, which was hate. At the time, there were some incidents, and as we know, there have been more incidents since 2022, but we realized that we needed to have a way to work in this space of social justice, but also in a way that was more effective and efficient around some of the processes that some of our agencies may have in place. So that started all in late 2022. So we're really sort of in that second year of this initiative. In 2023, the focus was really on research, on staff support, on initial investments to sort of get some funding under this initiative, and then also work on the website. So in terms of investments, the city put in about $20,000. UC Davis about $30,000, Yolo County about $40,000. So around that, we have about $90,000 that's sort of been put aside and rolled over, that will be rolling over into other fiscal years as we go into them. About a third of that money, maybe less, has been spent already on the website that we put together, on some promotional items and outreach events that we've had, and then the rest of that money is sort of in the bank for now. And that money really should last us, I think, for at least a few years. In 2023, we also did a lot of research in terms of what's happening. Do we have something like this currently in our communities? What is there in the state? What is there in the county? We researched, is it an easy way to find resources in terms of how to report hate crimes? And there really wasn't a lot out there. There's a lot in other jurisdictions at the state. There's California versus Hate, LA versus Hate, Stop the Hate, United Against Hate, which is a federal national initiative. But we didn't quite have anything that was really like local, either here in Davis or at the county level, that was focused at this sort of higher agency level within our jurisdictions. We also looked at staff support. Our team initially started with 3 people. I was one of them. We also had Mabel Salon from UC Davis, and then we also had Tara Thronson from the county. And so we kind of started with a lean yet mean team of 3 to sort of start this work for this initiative. We also had initial meetings and conversations with people in the community, with local leaders, with elders, just to sort of get a touch point and a temperature check about how they felt about having this initiative. We got a lot of great feedback. We got feedback about, going slow and doing this right? This issue is something that is not easily solved in 1 year or multiple years or one meeting or one instance. It really takes ongoing effort across all of our jurisdictions, so we've got that advice. We also talked about the name Hate Free Together, and I understand that there's a lot of emotion and feeling around it, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of other initiatives also use the word hate because this is very specific to the hate crimes and the hate incidents that are happening in the community that already have a name prescribed to it. We thought about other names, we thought about using other words. But that was the decision that was made by the agencies and also approved in a resolution in 2022. In addition to that, in 2023, we also, the City of Davis went after a grant. We went after and received a $300,000 grant through the California Creative Corps that was specifically to hire artists in the community to do work in social justice space. And so that was a City of Davis grant. We did hire 3 artists initially to help us with this work. Those 3 were Bike City Theater Company, Davis Shakespeare, and then Davis Repertoire. They were hired to do work in the community, to get feedback. One of the things that when we started this initiative that we really wanted to focus on at the beginning was really listening to and hearing from our community, right? We had heard loud and clear that just putting a statement out there, just having words is not really enough. People want to see action, but for that action to really mean something, it has to really come from getting input from the community. And so this grant was a way for us to get that input from the community. I've used this example before, some of you guys are familiar with it. I like to call Hate Free Together sort of like an octopus, where the initiative is sort of, you know, the head of the octopus, but then there's many arms or tentacles that sort of help to do the work, right? So the website is like one arm, the artists and what their engagement is another arm, you know, Human Relations Commission could be another arm, and so forth. So there's lots of sort of moving pieces. All the arms can move separately from each other, but they're all still sort of connected to that main idea of the Hate Free Together initiative. So we also met with the HRC chair and vice chair at the time. It was Robin and Kevin, to kind of talk about some of the work that the Human Relations Commission had done, especially with the conflict that had started with Gaza and with Israel, and the work that the HRC had sort of become a conduit for many of the community members in Davis to sort of share their feelings with and get input from. Also at that time, the commission restructuring, I think, was starting, and so the conversation sort of paused just a little bit in terms of how could we move forward until the restructuring was sort of done, as well as, you know, gaining more or adding more commissioners to it. The website went out, the RFP went out, so much of 2023 was getting the RFP out, doing the interviews, doing the scope of work, building the website, all of that. And so at the beginning of 2024, in March, the website was released. So it is a great framework for not just to start, I want to say, like this phase that we're currently in, to have sort of how to report a hate crime, a learning center, resources, a calendar, but also to build upon it for other things that may come up that we want to add to the website. And so that website was released in March of this year. 2024 has really been about the website, outreach, and then that grant. So the website went live in March. We also added 2 partners. So in addition to the city, the county, and UC Davis, we also added Davis Joint Unified School District. At the time, we had Kristen Connor, who was the PIO, that was on our committee, and then Kate Snow came on later. And then we also added Yolo County Office of Education. Their PIO, Anthony Volcare, is on our executive committee. And UC Davis also added additional staff, so now we also have Michael and Megan, as I introduced them earlier. So now we're a team of, I want to say 9. I think we're 9. We also added a few other staff from Yolo County. Sheila Allen was added, Oliver was also added, and then from time to time we may also have Emily, who is Lucas Frericks' other aide in addition to Tara Thronson. And then once the county has hired a DEI manager, coordinator, one of those, once that position is filled, that person will also be added to our executive committee to round it out to hopefully 10. In addition to the partners, the executive committee also started doing outreach this year. We did about 4 or 5 events. We did Juneteenth, we did a Cherry Blossom Festival, we did a farmer's market event where we also had some of the artists come and do an activity. We did Celebrate Davis, a few others, and in total we spoke to about 700, 800 people just at those events to kind of just get the word out a little bit more about the initiative. We'll also be starting bi-monthly community group meetings. The first meeting is actually on Monday, this coming Monday, where we're going to talk with local community groups, nonprofits, community leaders, just to sort of touch bases, get updates, hear about what's going on, see if there is ways that we can better support each other in this work. So that's a new thing that also got started. Those will be bi-monthly, every 2 months, not twice a month. We also were reached out to by Bet Haverim, and they presented anti-Semitism presentation to us. Leah Habel and Harriet Gaddisman provided that to us, to the Hate Free Together executive group. We've also had other conversations with them in terms of ways to support them, ways to do work in this space. So we continue to communicate with Bet Haverim. At the same time, we've also been doing things to improve our own internal matters. This is not an exhaustive list, but as Kate mentioned earlier, DJUSD had that training the other day. They also created an identity-based harm protocol. They're tracking anti-Semitism and racist incidents on campuses. I'm sure that's correct. Kate will correct me if I'm wrong. UC Davis, they've had meetings with community and the community, for those that were impacted by the crisis in Gaza and Israel. They, put public safety first. Their police department is working with our police department in terms of keeping each other apprised and many other things in addition to that. The City of Davis, we have worked on an internal calendar of days of cultural importance, and so we're sort of working through to see how we can make it public or see what appetite there is for that. We also started a DEIB committee, and we've also been, communicating with DJUSD, UC Davis, and our county counterparts as well on these issues. Yolo County Office of Education, they've working on pushing for more ethnic studies programs in Yolo County. They also have a youth commission, of which there are students from DJUSD on that commission, as well as other school districts, and many other efforts, but that's just a small sharing of some of the internal work that we've all been doing on this issue. And the $300,000 grant has actually seen a lot of headway. There are lots of things that the 3 artist groups have been doing in terms of working with specific communities in Davis, working with communities that have been impacted by race or hate in other communities. There was actually money left over in the grant for us to hire additional artists, nonprofits, to help us in this space. So we also brought on Bahia Jackson. She is a local Davis podcaster. She's a Jedi expert. And so she is going to be doing 10 interviews on behalf of the initiative with local community members on social justice matters, right? How to build belonging, what did they do, what did people need to do to feel safe, ideas and suggestions for the city. The interviewees include folks from Bet Haverim, Sandy Holman, there's a Mighty Winton cultural practitioner, one of the youth commissioners from YCOE, and as well as a few of your commissioners even here on stage, but as community members, not as commissioners, but just sharing their experience. Those podcasts are going to be recorded. I think they started in August and will go until September. Once all of the podcasts are done, we'll sort of do like a sharing of, all the podcasts so people can sort of listen in and hear about these experiences, add them to the Hate Free Together website and so forth. We also hired Jessica Marie Ross. She's a community cultural development practitioner and strategist. I wrote down her title. She was hired to assist with some of the work that the artists had done, but also to do targeted listening sessions in the Davis Manor neighborhood. And those listening sessions actually concluded, I think, at the end of last week, where they had more than 60 people come. There was a visual recorder. They talked about how to improve belonging, what the city can do, what they can do as individuals, and also what they as a community or as a neighborhood can do. We were also able to bring on International House to sort of put together a culminating report of all the work that the artists have been doing for this grant. So at the end of the grant, which is at the end of September, they'll start on this report and they'll be able to really put all the findings, all the work that all the artists had done into an easy-to-read graphic format that we can then share with the community of all the work that's been done, with the council, with the Human Relations Commission, and so forth. And so that's also coming up. And so between the 5-6 artist groups, there's probably 25, 30 events that are happening in August and September. Not all of these events are public-facing. Some of them are like the Davis Manor, right? Very specific to a community or to a neighborhood. They're the interviewee podcasts. They're, you know, really meant to build trust and have conversations. A few of the events are going to be public-facing, and those that are, the city, the committee will share with the public, with the HRC. I'll share it with Carrie so she can also share it with you guys. There's a few that I think that are coming up. One of the efforts that I wanted to call out is Davis Repertoire. They went and did a whole sort of listening session, interview process, and now they're around the Woodland Joint Unified recall of one of their board members about an issue about LGBTQ. And so they're sort of culminating with a few events and presentations of that. And so I think there's one that may be public that the people can sort of come. There's one that's a little bit more private where the people who gave interviews, who shared their experience, who really talked about it, can sort of listen, you know, they can listen and hear, you know, the culmination of that effort. So there's lots of things happening sort of on that front. We're hoping to also maybe have a training, a workshop. The executive committee, we're still sort of talking it through around how do we have difficult conversations, right? A lot of times when there is an issue, when something comes up, people just sometimes don't know how to bridge that or meet that other person to be able to have a constructive conversation. And so we're looking to have a training hopefully before the end of this year around that. And so that plus the artist work, plus the outreach, plus everything else has sort of led us now to this point. And so I feel like this is actually a great point for us to have this conversation with the HRC now that we have gotten sort of the groundwork and the framework of Hate Free Together going. The artists are doing that outreach to listen to the community, to get feedback from the community. Once that information comes back, we can really now think about what are some things that the City of Davis can do, that UC Davis can do, that we can do together, Yolo County, right, YCOE, DGUSD, et cetera, so that we're really listening to the community in terms of what they're hoping to see from us, other than, like I said, statements and things like that, right? To really have some oomph and have some input and feedback. And, you know, I really feel like this is that octopus analogy, right? That there's so many ways in which we can work together to engage our community, HRC, Hate Free Together, to think about how we can get feedback, how we can share information with each other, how we can sort of assist each other, because this is a huge endeavor, right? And we're hoping to not just have this be in Davis. Davis is sort of like the pilot city, I'd like to call it. We want to expand this into Woodland and into other parts of Yolo County, and that's why we were very specific in making Hate Free Together, not just, you know, Hate Free Davis or something like that, really to give it a name that could go beyond just our city for now, or later into the work. So I'm going to see if Megan and Sheila, if there's anything I left out or anything you guys would want to add.
If given the opportunity.
As was mentioned, I'm Sheila Allen. I used to sit around a table, so look at you fancy people up there on the dais. It's really great to see some familiar faces and always wonderful to see some new ones, because that means that there continues to be an interest in the community. I'm very excited to be a part of Hate Free Together. We did, as you can imagine, do a lot of talk around, is that the right word? It's like, maybe it's like where everybody belongs, I feel like hate-free, to me, felt a little on the negative side, but we decided as a group, that's where we're going. And also as a previous member of the Human Relations Commission, I've always loved the concept and the potential that a group of citizens are interested in assuring that we are humanly relating to each other in the city of Davis. So thank you for stepping forward to be a part of that. I'm hoping that and I was like, I think it's much more than an octopus. I don't know if we're at a centipede or a millipede or something, but it's really, there's a broad, clearly government interest in this, which represents the people. But I think that as we are moving forward now, we're trying to kind of gather up more momentum with the people. And I think that you as a group of local citizens will be a key part of that. So I'm hoping as she talked about all the many things that we've done so far and kind of set up some structure that maybe that cued some things in your mind, either that you were hoping that this group could do or you've seen in the community could be done. And then when you get the data from the artists, I think that would be another sort of jumping off point from it. So I really look forward to having the HRC be a part of this process.
Thank you, Sheila. Megan? No? And so, we're at this great point where now that your commission has more members, now that the restructuring of the functions has been done, we're now, I think, at this really great area where this work is coming in from the artists. We're going to get this feedback. We can really think about what do we do now? How do we engage the community? How can we get feedback? How can we sort of work together in terms of that community engagement portion of the function and also the work, one of the centipede legs or arms of Hate Free Together. I'll conclude my report.
Well, Jenny, thank you for that overview, and Sheila, Megan, Michael, Kate. We have a lot of folks here who have been doing a lot of work, and I really appreciate that kind of thoughtful presentation that you've just offered for us, and as well as, of course, all the good work that's gotten into creating this animal to be described later, whether it's an octopus or something else, and getting it off the ground. But so I want to just really kind of maybe open it up for conversation, discussion. Obviously, we are interested, and I'm sure there are going to be questions of a lot of different types, but I think one of the things we're interested in doing is trying to figure out how best to be a partner in this. Anyway, so let me then just invite comment, questions,
I have some
reflections. I think we have Kate and Fatima.
Are community questions also allowed?
Well, we will have public comment, yes, definitely at the end.
I just thought I'd add a little perspective from another part of the picture, or to emphasize what Jenny's describing. Sort of two things. One, I think part of the strength of what's happened so far has been, I think we can't underestimate the value of connecting the large institutions in our community together, and regardless of the name, however people feel about the name, I do think that an effort to help focus the interactions and conversations of these institutions that have this mix of elected members and temporary students and long-term community members is a valuable one, and it's good to do it around a positive activity. So even though it may not always look like a lot from the outside, I would say there's already been lots of community building and relationship building between institutions. We're learning from each other, we're borrowing from each other and sharing skills and perspectives and resources, and that already is an accomplishment of the initiative. And a lot you'll see kind of gathered on the website, but there are other things that are behind the scenes that I think have been valuable so far. And then the second, I just maybe want to offer one example. I know a specific example, you talked about the theater one. But one of the interactions with young people this summer from one of the theater companies was to learn from students in our summer school program, elementary students in our summer school program, what they were experiencing in school, sort of in terms of difficulties of engaging with each other and conflict. And that theater group used the principles we already use in our elementary schools, which is a set of conflict resolution tools called Kelso's Choices. We teach our elementary students how to approach conflict using this frame. And so theater techniques mixed with things that students are already learning that are integrated together helped both inform the theater company about what students are experiencing, but also helped build student confidence in their own ability to work with conflict among themselves. So there's a sort of a tiny concrete example. That's all. And I'm happy to hear what people's questions are and what more we can do.
Great, thank you. Kima.
So I know that one of the things we're going to talk about is how we want to work with the Hate Free Together initiative. This sort of, before we go there, I have quite a lot of questions about what you just went through. I'm going to go through some of them, but it might be, I might want to just ask if there's a way for, like, we can have even, like, I could meet with you and learn a little bit more about some of these specific things, because I have a lot of curiosity about it. I'm just going to go through a couple really quickly, though. You mentioned a $90,000 budget that came from 3 different sources, and I was just curious if that included the $30,000 grant, and actually I didn't really catch the amount that you got from the Creative Corps.
It does not include a grant, it's $300,000.
$300,000, okay,
Yeah.
great.
And the grant had to be used by the end of September this year. So that's why there's sort of been such a push on the artist grant, because it was one grant that we were given, but also because of the deadline that was this year.
Okay, and then in the $90,000, you used $30,000 essentially for outreach and the website, and I'm curious how much you think in terms of like runway you have with the $60,000. Have you been thinking you need to bring in more money for this initiative, or is this like a 2-year, do you know how much longer it will last?
Well, we're trying to be as fiscally responsible with that money as we can. I think we're going to try to make it last as long as we can. I mean, I think it was around $25,000 was for the website, because we had to hire a vendor to build the website for us, and to also maintain it for us for a few years and all of those costs. We are looking into other ways to sort of build that funding. We're looking at grants too. I think grants is going to help us a lot. I mean, the $300,000 grant is just an example. I mean, if we didn't have that money, we wouldn't have been able to get quite to that point yet. So it's going to take, I think, more funding, more grants, even having, if we can at some point, dedicated staff, right? Even though there's 8, 9, 10 of us sort of working on this, we're only really working on it when we can, right? None of us are dedicated to it. We all have many other responsibilities and projects that we're working on. So being able to have someone dedicated to this work, I think, will also help us sort of move things along and keep things going. But I would say the remaining funds that we have should be able to last us for at least a couple of years, but it also depends on maybe what comes from our discussion too of what do we want to do with the work, with the feedback that we get from the report, what else we hear from the community, right? Are they things that will cost more money or require some other amount? Who knows? But we're definitely looking at how much more we can get. Are there other ways, grants, things like that?
Thank you, and congratulations on such a big grant. I just have one last question, and then I might have more later. Sort of at the end of certain timelines or critical milestones, what has the initiative decided is like how it's going to measure its success? Like, what are the goals that you want to reach with this initiative?
Well, I think the ultimate end goal is to have a hate-free community. Measures, we have talked about that, and I think some of that's going to depend on what comes out from this report, right? Then we'll be able to really see, like, what are the things that the community is wanting? How do is that something we can do in a 1-year timeline, a 2-year timeline, etc.? being really able to feel out what the needs of the community are before we kind of set some of those measures. One of the measures that we have, sort of internally is to, being able to build like a network of agencies, nonprofits, organizations, things like that, right? Building up that collaboration, that network. And so we're starting to do that a little bit in terms of the bi-monthly community meetings that will be starting on Monday. Also, using the website also as one of the measures in terms of like having resources on there, being able to have people go there and actually use it. Are people actually reporting hate crimes through this portal or through the links and stuff like that? So there's definitely going to be measures that come from it. We're kind of, I would say, still in discussion about the full set of how do we really measure success, right? And I'm happy to have a meeting with you anytime.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dina. And next we'll go to Edgar.
Thanks, Jenny. That was a really helpful update, and you have done a lot, especially since we last talked. So I really just tip my hat off to you and the group. I do have now a big question that I've been pondering this whole time, which is, what is our role? And what is the HRC's role in all of this? Because I feel like you've built this amazing team now. You have two of our members who are part of the executive committee who are there as well. How can a public member of the community, a commissioner, or a group of us, then best really serve and aid in all of these different projects that your team is really trying to do? Is it going to be based on the need of a particular project, or is it going to be based on consultation, right? Or coming and doing maybe just a regular report back, having us add this as a standing agenda item where we are, honestly just kind of following up on all the different programs. I had no idea Hate Free Together was doing so much stuff. I attended one of the events, but didn't know that the others were even happening. So I guess that just makes me think then, what would you hope is our role? Because it also is dependent on who's at the table, and we cycle in and cycle out. So what would you like to see from our commission? I think some of us have ideas of how we'd love to help, but again, that's in our own capacities and our own expertise. But for the long term, to have the involvement of the HRC, what would you envision? And maybe other executive members could comment on that too if they want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for the whole executive committee, and anyone who's here is more than welcome to comment or as a council member. There's a lot of work to be done, right? We all know that hate is elusive, it's multifaceted, there's a lot to it. Even in our tagline, we talk about 3 different facets of it, of condemning hate, creating safety, and also cultivating change, right? It's sort of like multiple efforts, multiple things that need to happen to be able to even start to think about and build that community, that safe community that we want for everyone, for our children. I believe that the HRC absolutely is a valuable asset. You guys, with the experience, the lived experience that you have, with the work that you do, with the communities and the connections in the neighborhoods that you have, being able to provide feedback, being able to go out into the community, to share information, being able to let us know, hey, you guys, this is brewing, something needs to be done. I also think that there's a lot of opportunity available, really depending on what sort of happens, in maybe your long-range discussion even, right? Of what the HRC wants to do, but also has a bandwidth to do, but also in connection with the city council's goals and direction, and in connection with sort of what we hear from the community in this report, for example, right? So I think there's lots of outliers that sort of depend on what we see, but I absolutely want to see a stronger collaboration and relationship with the HRC. That could be a lot of different things. I mean, I'm really open to it. This is new, right? Hate Free Together is new, so In a lot of ways, we can sort of really discuss and talk through what we want that to look like. But I also think there needs to be some flexibility, sort of depending on what also comes up later on. We just don't know. So that's somewhat of an answer, I think, but absolutely, I want to partner. I think we all want to work a lot more closely with the Human Relations Commission and really see what that can look like.
And if I can just jump in, I want to make sure that we continue to tie it back to the specified function in the resolution, which is the commission's being regarding the city's community engagement component of the Hate Free Together initiative. So the direction from council is for you guys to be the lead commission on community engagement for the city's component of that. So any work that is done with Hate Free Together, at least at this point, under the functions of the resolution, should be tied into a community engagement component, which is mentioned to be many different things and in different ways, et cetera.
And the initiative is 5 agencies at this point, so it's big. So the City of Davis's part of it is one of 5, and then within that is going to be the Human Relations Commission role. I mean, you guys shouldn't be speaking on behalf or working on behalf of Yola County, for example, right? So being able to keep that in mind too is curious.
I'm just a follow-up then. When you reported back what you were doing, is UC Davis, is the county doing their own initiatives that we haven't heard about, or is this everything that's happening right now?
This is everything under the auspice of Hate Free Together.
Okay.
There may be, as I sort of mentioned earlier, things that are happening internally, like the more race equity classes that Yola County Office of Education is doing, right? Or the training that DJOSD did yesterday. So we're all sort of working under this umbrella, but there's still lots of individual things that are sort of happening in that work. But what I presented to you tonight is sort of that overarching Hate Free Together work. The artists, the website, the funding, etc.
We've got a couple of commissioners who want to speak, but if I might just quickly follow up on that. Once upon a time, I think there was some discussion about whether a subcommittee of the HRC as a structural component might be something that would be helpful for formalizing whatever kind of relationship there is, whatever the limits of that relationship might be. And I guess I just want to ask you, if I might, is there any thought about, whether that might potentially be?
So I will mention that Carrie and I already work together very closely, under the city manager's office, and we do, weekly check-ins, and we're letting each other know sort of what's happening in terms of the HRC world, the Hate Free Together world. You have Michael and Kate now that are on our executive committee that are also on the HRC. So there's already some existing ties and connections there. I think that may be a discussion for the HRC if you think more is needed. Whether that, and I'm always happy to come back and present, ongoing updates, right? Now that we have our full slate of commissioners that are on here, and I've given my, beginning presentation or the history of, then like the next presentations should be, or updates should be much more faster and just sort of the new things that are coming on. So that those two existing ties, the ability to come back and always report back to you is always open as well. If you guys discuss, you guys want more than that, I think that's for you guys to.
Trying to get your sense of things. Thank you. We have Felix, and then Amir, and then I think I saw Lane.
Hi. First, I want to congratulate you on all the great work you guys have done. It seems like in the short span of time that the initiative has been put together, that a lot has been done. And the website is great. I was, studying and looking at all the great resources. I think that going back to, Edgar took the words right out of my mouth. It's the function, or in terms of how can we help you, or what it is exactly that you want from us or need from us, rather. I think that going back to our functions, being the community engagement component of the Hate Free Together initiative, I think it would be great if we could possibly advertise the HRC on the website. I think that would be is something that we're missing. I think that the community maybe, when going through the website is something that I noticed, maybe a mention of the HRC, maybe the email, or some information, a link to the HRC and what it is that we're here for would be beneficial to some folks, right? Not just reporting the incident, which is very important, but also maybe engaging with the community or letting the community know so that we can do something about it from our end. I think would be great. We mentioned possibly this being a standing item on our agendas. I don't know if that's maybe feasible for you guys to come in every single meeting, right, and provide us with some of this information that you've gathered. But you did mention you mentioned bi-monthly community engagement events, right? I think maybe if we could work on something like that, maybe a bi-monthly or after your bi-monthly community engagement event, maybe you deliver an information packet for us, or anything that you'd like to share with us in order for us to better assist you with that community engagement component. Our hands are tied when it comes to that, right? As we've discussed already, we can't create events. We're pretty limited to what we can do. And so if you can be that branch for us and provide us with that information that you've gathered, that would be really beneficial, I think, for our commission and our work that we would like to do.
Yeah, I will say there is a link to the HRC website on the Hate Free Together website. I think it's under resources. But we can definitely have a discussion to bolster that section to talk a little bit more about the mission, have an email available for people so more than just like clicking on the link that takes you then to the city webpage. So that's absolutely something I think we can consider. And I believe we did send an invitation to Kevin for the bi-monthly meeting, so he'll be there. And then, Kate and Michael and the executive committee are also going to be in on that meeting. But yeah, absolutely sort of ways to sort of provide updates. Maybe not every month is feasible. I'm already here twice a month for city council meetings until like 10 o'clock. So
it sounds like you have a lot of everything already, and so we wouldn't want to put more on you.
I would also think that Kate and Michael could be able to provide, the updates as they come up as well.
Thank you. So I'll make it quick because many of the questions that I had were answered actually. And I also wanted to congratulate you. It's like incredible amount of work and I'm really impressed. My question is regarding those meetings that you have, the outreach meeting. Can we as commissioners show up for those meetings, and how does that with the Brown Act? Like, can we come as a group, or does that somehow interfere with the Brown Act?
So I'll answer one half of that question. I think the other half is for Zoe or Carrie about the Brown Act. Some of those events are going to be not open to the public. It's going to be very specific to that community. We have asked the artists, is it possible to attend some of them, whether even as helpers, right? Like maybe they need assistance as note takers, as whatever it may be. Some of them, they were like, yes, you may be able to attend. Others, he said, you may not. And even that's even for us as part of the executive committee and even, as the grantees to them for the funds. So I think the ones that are open for the public to attend, I think will be fine. And those are events that, I can share with Carrie and then she can share through emails for you guys. There may be some, like some of them you may need to RSVP, right? Just so they can get like a head count or an idea. And then the other half I'll leave to Carrie in terms of Brown Act stuff.
I'm going to attempt to answer, but I'm very glad that Zoe's sitting behind me in case I get it wrong. So the answer is, as community members, you guys would all be able to go. You would not be able to convene with each other. You would not be able to discuss any HRC items. You would never want to have a quorum of you sitting together. So I think an example was at that recent artist event that was held, if there's breakout sessions or breakout tables, it would be important just to, sit yourself separately, et cetera.
Yeah, I think for that event, each HRC member that came was in their own group with other people from the community, so no two commissioners were in a group together, just so the discussion, right, like you're not discussing anything that could be related to it, and then, separating yourself for the rest of the event.
All right, so I guess what I want to say is my emotional experience right now is like a little bit complicated. I feel both like very relieved and a little deflated at the same time. I feel relieved, both between this item and the last item, I feel somewhat relieved to know that there's not a lot we could have done differently last year, given better communication with the council, or I don't know, and that there's only so much we can do going forward. But I also feel like very excited about a lot of the things that you did last year, because we talked about a lot of those things and didn't have the permission or the understanding of how to make that happen. So what I'm appreciating right now is like the agility that Hate Free Together seems to have, and I think that's going to be a real, I know you've got 5 bureaucracies working together, so I'm sure agility is maybe not the right term, but at least you as an entity, you have the integrity to be able to make choices and make things happen in our community. I guess the only actual point that I want to make, aside from sharing my feelings, is that what I don't want, what it sounds to me like it is possible that the HRC, being the community engagement piece of Hate Free Together from the city's perspective, might just mean that we sit here and people say angry things to us. And I'm happy to do that part, and of course it's not always angry. We get a lot of lovely comments, and I really enjoy hearing everybody's perspective. But I don't feel good about the possibility that that's the entirety of our function, is to listen to that, and then Carrie tells Jenny what people said to us. That doesn't feel like it's like utilizing my skills or like interests in a useful way. And I like putting on the events, there's other things that we do, but in terms of us being a relation to Hate Free Together on behalf of the city, I would like to think that there are ways that our community engagement is making a difference in enacting change in the community, participating positively in, so I guess I just want to say that to you and everybody who's on that committee, that I think it would be right for us to be invited to participate in positive progress in the community, as well as like sitting here and taking in a lot of pain from people.
And I did want to clarify, I don't think that was our intent to just have you guys listen to just negativity and then like report back. I think there's a lot of opportunity and ways we can think about, like I said, the work that you guys do personally, professionally. How can we use those skills, the resources, the connections to really have this go deeper into the community, right? The committee, we also have our own skills and resources, but we're also seen as government workers, and so that sometimes is not, it doesn't help us sometimes in making those connections. So I think there's more conversation that we can have in terms of, what you guys bring, what are maybe some obstacles that the Hate Free Together Executive Committee has that maybe you guys can help us with, and so forth. So I think there's opportunity to really think about how to best utilize everyone's skills and interests and experiences.
Michael,
Jenny, I'm just wondering, Megan and I represent the university, and of course there's a representative from TJUSD. I'm wondering, given the specificity in terms of the HRC functions as regards to Hate Free Together, if it makes sense, if it's still possible to have a member from the commission to actually be part of the executive committee.
think we can have a discussion and see where it goes, yeah.
Connor, then Metro.
So I had a few things that I wanted to mention, and at least some of them are based on my notes from the February meeting. So some of it will be kind of related to some of the things that were presented there, primarily around the website. So first off, I did want to mention that COVID-19 is still very prominent. So even though like a lot of places have moved away from some of the mitigation measures, I do think that we should acknowledge that, and that is part of social justice to try to address the issues around that. But then on Hate Free Together, I do understand some of the concerns with the name, but I also definitely understand where the name came from, and I'm generally okay with that. And I think the biggest question is just how to inform people about and address issues around oppression, and that means both interpersonal and structural. So I think that's the thing that I'm most interested in, regardless of the name, is how this initiative is going to be working around those issues to both inform people about them and also to try to reduce the amount of harm that exists and the amount of oppression that there is. And I do think that working with different communities is an important way to do that, and I am wondering if Hate Free Together has done outreach to organizations and groups in a variety of marginalized and oppressed communities, and if there's ideas around how to further that and to get the different perspectives and experiences from that. And then I also do want to mention around the website especially, so I like that there's a way for people to report hate incidents that's separate from reporting them to the police, because there's a lot of people, especially in oppressed communities, who are not comfortable going to the police because policing is structurally designed to uphold dominant groups and to oppress the marginalized. But I know it seems like, at least last that I saw, there were still a lot of police resources on the website. So I'm wondering if there's a way to include other types of resources as well and other ways to report. And if there's a way to report directly to Hate Free Together and what could potentially be done with those reports. And that might actually be a good function of the HRC, or in general of outreach and communication, is a non-police resource to take in reports of hate incidents and to at least be aware of them and possibly compile summaries of what's been going on, and also try to think through how to address them. So yeah, I was kind of wondering where those reports go, and if that could be a role of the HRC, is being a non-police mechanism for taking in that information and for compiling it.
I will say on the website, there are resources on there, for example, victim services. There are other ways to report that are not to law enforcement. What I will say about reporting to law enforcement is that it then becomes like a record, right? That they can search, they can see if there are trends, right? What I've heard from law enforcement, even from the state attorney general, was that even if you're not sure if it's a hate crime, if you're not sure if something happened, you should report it anyway, because they can see trends. They'll be able to see, okay, this person maybe has been reported 3 times already. It may not have been a hate crime, but if it actually gets to that point where it is a hate crime, unfortunately, if that happens, then there's supporting evidence in the system that, the criminal justice system will, take into account. So there is something for reporting, but I do understand that there are lots of communities that don't trust law enforcement, that have anxiety and fear, that have a lot of negative experiences with law enforcement. So whether that's Hate Free Together, I think we can also sort of discuss that and see if there's an avenue for that. I don't know if it was to be reported, I'm just thinking out loud, to Hate Free Together, would that be something that the police department would take? Or, what information they would need, or even if it would be viable, I'm not sure. So I think there's more to be had there other than just the reporting. I will say, Michael's point earlier made me think about the executive committee is not just around like Davis, even though there are a lot of Davis organizations and agencies on there. We do want to think about Hate Free Together as a larger community with the county, with possible extension into other cities, in future years. So, I will bring back to the committee whether or not adding other members, what that looks like. But also, I do think we are looking into having it be not super Davis-centric as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly follow up and mention that, kind of the idea here would be, is there a way for this to potentially be a mechanism to track those patterns as separate from policing? Because I think tracking those patterns is important, but right now it does seem like the only groups that do so tend to be law enforcement. So I'm wondering, is there a way to create a mechanism separate from that would do its own form of tracking of patterns and whatnot?
Thank you, Connor, and then we're going to go to Edgar, and then we are coming close to time, so I think we are not going to exhaust this topic, I don't think, tonight, but I want to just go ahead and finish with Edgar.
Okay, just a couple really quick thoughts. I'm following up with Lainey with your thoughts on just how we would be like a sounding board. And the way that I actually want to flip it around is I feel like with the potential limitations of what the HRC can and can't do, this is a potential arm instead where we can find avenues to do more stuff, right? And get into the community. And by utilizing this partnership, not trying to take advantage of it, but it's a different avenue for us to be able to find ways to restrict us from what the rules of engagement are for our actual commission. So I kind of want us to think more, think creatively and be like, hey, how can we use this to our advantage? And then from that, then I would suggest putting this on our long-term plan, to really discuss how do we want to propose then to Hate Free Together that HRC is involved. And what we should do is have a discussion on, should it be a subcommittee? Should it be a representative from the HRC? Should it be a standing item where someone from the executive committee, doesn't have to be Jimmy, it could be someone who just attends those executive meetings, just do a quick report back, just like how we always have 6A of recent hate instances. So I'd love for us to put on our long-term plan something like that, discuss it, and then come back to Jenny with a proposal to say hey, this is how we think with this current group, we can help you. And then maybe that's the way we can kind of proceed. Because I know I threw you with this giant overarching question of what do we do? But again, it's going to be the expertise of what we have. And so with this group, why don't we make a proposal to you? And if you're okay with that, then we start the negotiation of does this work?
Thanks for the reframe, Edgar. I appreciate you. And I'd be remiss, I wish I had also added that I really appreciate the authenticity of the work that I think has already been done. And the event that most of us attended at the Vets Memorial was really lovely, and I really see the benefit of people being together, doing things that aren't necessarily talking about conflict, but being in a space together, creating things or discussing things. I do think that was an excellent use of the resources that you were able to acquire, and I appreciate it.
Gloria, and then we will go to public comment.
Thank you. I also want to say thank you. And I think that you're stating that this is something that you do on top of the million other things that you do is a huge understatement.
And I'm quite impressed always with the work that Jenny does, and especially that they've been able to, put forward such a robust program, really with, such little resources is a testament to their dedication and the importance of how important they feel this work is. And I also want to say that I hear the frustration around, not having sort of the freedom, or that you feel that you don't have the freedom to, distill what you're hearing the community is, maybe having feelings around and putting together events. But I don't think that is what Zoe said. What Zoe said is that there is a process for that, and that you still have that ability, and you have that ability as actually part of the resolution here, because you can do engagement, and that engagement can look a lot of different ways. It could be a dedicated, maybe one of the Martin Luther King celebrations is actually focused on, hate or biased or something like this. And then you could have another event later in the year if that is something that you feel is something that you want to do. So it's not an absolute, no, you can't participate in this way. There's just a process. I also want to say that I really appreciate the sort of high level coming together, as Kate mentioned, of the agencies that are working at this higher level, because that I see the value of that. It is how we got, when we were doing the COVID work, why that was so successful. But the other half of why that was so successful is that it was, all of us together. It was the entire community together that, worked together to do all the things they needed to do in order to keep everybody safe. And that was like the overarching message that was coming out of that. And I think that maybe we haven't gotten to that yet in this initiative. And that is something that we can work on, that HRC can work on, that other agencies can work on. The other part that made the COVID so successful was the trusted messengers, right? So that, we sent trusted messengers into the community to say, yes, it's okay to get vaccinated, you should go and get tested. And so that piece, in addition to the high level agencies working together, it was like all of these arms that you are describing and pulling everyone in. I would say that maybe the piece that we need to work a little more on is getting the information out, because I think that no one in the community knows that all of these wonderful things are happening, and not all of these wonderful things are for everyone, because this is an opportunity to target oppressed groups and to give them safe spaces to work through those conversations that they need to have. But it's also important for everyone to know that this is happening, because then you get more, you get that message out, and you can reach those places, because this is one of the most difficult places to reach. Reaching out to oppressed groups has always been a challenge for our community, because they are true minorities in our community, and it's, having done this work with my nonprofit for a long time, it is one of the most difficult things to do, is to make sure that all the groups that need to have their voices amplified know that there is a place to take your voice to. And so I think we need to do a better job of that. And then lastly, I think I'm really thrilled to hear that you are going to have some training in having difficult conversations, because this is hard work, and the conversations are really difficult. And I know a great person that you might reach out to, that So yeah, that has been on a commission. Okay. Not this one.
Okay. I would love that. I don't know if I had mentioned this in my report, that once the report of all the work is done, all the podcasts are done, we really want to do a big marketing push that really shows the community, look at all the work that was done, look at all the information that was put together, and then what action, what input we want from that, right, can be sort of discussed, but we definitely want to have more sharing, more visibility about this work. Like, you know, Gloria said, not all of it is for everybody, but everyone should know that it was happening and it is happening. And I just want to say, you know, this really is a team effort. It's not just me, even though I'm probably the one that speaks and reports on this the most out of the team. It really is the work of the county and UC Davis and DJUSD and the county and everyone else that's a part of this. So even though I'm sitting here before you, like I really do represent, you know, 8 other people here. But thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Can I say something?
Sheila, we are at 8:30, so I'm going to ask you to be very brief.
I'm going to be very brief, because the things that I wrote down happily were just said again. I was just going to give one suggestion, and I want to give you your, like, you've been asked to do engagement, so it's, you know, your hands are not tied and everything. We're asking you to be our engagement arm, so I love the fact that you're going to come forward with that. And I was just thinking that since it may be more difficult than usual to start a new event, perhaps you could do some of the engagement at the events that you already have. So as they're saying, maybe you could focus the MLK, or at the end of each of your events, or during each of your events, like, you know, scan this QR code and answer these 3 questions, or here's how you can find out about Hate Free Together. So there are ways for you to be very valuable to this whole effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. All right, let me open that up for public comment. I see someone coming forward. Good evening. Thank you for staying, and welcome.
Okay, my name is Reem Outer Shmawi. I'm a longtime member of the Davis community. I have 3 items. The first, I was thinking when you were all talking, one thing Connor mentioned was about places for people to go that are not police to report hate crimes. We're sitting in one place like that right now. You guys give that opportunity every single meeting, right? You give us an opportunity to speak if we have something. I think that should be on the website in those lists of places to report. Instead of being down as a resource or as a city organization on the website, it should be listed that, you know, this is an availability to anybody to come. Most people don't know you're here to listen to them, to listen to hate crimes that happen, and so maybe that should be moved up as another place. So that gives you a place that's not a police or a formal place. A lot of people are scared to have a formal complaint made, but coming here to know that you all will be listening to them would be a great thing to have, and that information to be out there. So that's one. Number 2, your learning resources on the website. I mean, you guys have done a lot of work and I appreciate that, but it's very confusing. So if you go to the website where it says Learning Center, I think it is, yeah, Learning Center, the title is Anti-Semitism Resources. It's not resources, but all of the resources are listed under that, including Islamophobia resources are listed under Anti-Semitism resources. So I think maybe it's just a typo or some sort of layout mistake, but there's 4 anti-Semitism resources, and then all the other resources are listed under this title. So I'm kind of confused. When I went there, you know, as you guys probably know, I'm Palestinian, and there's been a lot of things being shouted at Palestinian members of the city or students about, oh, you terrorists and all this stuff. And when I went there to suggest somebody go, because I was told by, I don't remember who I talked to, go to Hate Free Together, I was really surprised. First of all, there's nothing for us. And second of all, the way it's presented is as if there's really not resources. There's not other people who asked me about anti-trans, you know, hate. I said, go there. There's nothing listed. There's not a welcoming, broad place. So I really appreciate all the work that was done, but I think we just maybe need to look at the layout and how, when people go to reach it, what they can find. And the last thing was, oh, there is a link for resources for what's happening in Gaza, for help, and it leads to the county, let's see, what is it? The county, Yolo County competence plan. It doesn't lead to anything about Gaza. So I'm hoping that is, again, I'm sure, I mean, I've done websites before that there's links that don't lead to the right place. It's just maybe we can do that, because this is a critical time for us and the Palestinian and Arab community, and we really need to know that we have a place here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, welcome.
Hi, good evening. I was just getting oriented to Hate Free, the initiative, and learning about it earlier this year. So I really appreciated being able to come and learn and, hear about the establishment of everything that's going on. I have a question about it, and also I just want to give you a little bit of context to the question so you can understand that and hopefully explain. I'm wondering, how do decisions get made about what goes on the Hate Free website for the resources? Because I noticed, a while back, there was the posting in the resource section of a film, Israelism, and then later when I went back, it was gone. And I don't know why that was. To me, it seemed like a pretty important resource because, half of my family are Jewish, and there's a complete divide in even my own family around what's going on in the current crisis, and even what's been going on for many years prior to the current crisis. And that film really reflects the growing divide in our society within the Jewish community around Israel and what's going on. So for me, that's the context of the question, because it felt like a good resource to have, because it is important, because there's people who are very critical even within the Jewish community. There's very strong differences and divisions within our own community. That's important for others to understand as well, because criticism doesn't necessarily always reflect with hate. It's important that we're all critical because we want to make a better world. So really, really grateful for all the work that you all are doing. Really happy to hear how broadly you're working in the community. I was very impressed with that, and hoping for the continued success of the work. And thank you all for what your group is doing. Thank you, Kate, as well, for what DJUSD is doing. My daughter, over 15 years ago, came home and taught me about counselor's choices. And so the conflict resolution, the skills that you're giving kids are coming back to the families, and some of those kids are teaching us. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Okay, good.
Thank you. And Jenny, did you want to respond to the question? Okay. And Mr. Hirsch, good evening.
Good evening. What is the role of the Human Relations Commission? Hate Free Davis, Hate Free Community Together are driven by institutions, and institutions have certain proclivities that blind them, empower them, whatever, and you can provide, as citizens, as normal citizens, you can provide them with another perspective, another insight. I believe that the Hate Free program should be a bottoms-up, crowdsourced initiative. Should not be a top-down website, grant-funded, top-down decided sort of thing. Some people might be a little afraid of, oh boy, all the government institutions are getting together and they're going to wipe out what they think is hate. You can see how that cuts both ways. I think we need to be careful of that and make it friendly. I kind of caught a little that sort of concern about that. How do we make this a citizen space, a bottoms-up sort of thing? And I'll give you an example of a bottoms-up sort of program. In 2017, there was a lot of fear about the Muslim ban and whatever, and people were welcome and whatever. So a man went down to the farmer's market and he started giving out lawn signs. Love your neighbor wherever they are. Wherever you are, we're glad you're here. And he gave out 2,500 lawn signs to Davis residents over 2.5 years, and it was self-funded. Just that effort. And that created neighborhoods where people could walk right down and see these signs, and people would feel welcome. Crowdsourced, bottoms up, people doing it in the neighborhoods. It wasn't restricted, everyone could be part of it. Those are the sorts of things we should be doing, inspiring it from the bottoms up. How do we get the people about having a few artists? Why don't we have lots of kids do chalk art and take pictures of that? So we have lots of kids involved, really bottoms up. I think you, as citizens, are much closer to what's going on in the community, what's needed, what can drive out fear. I think that would be a real importance. I don't think just relegating a place as being an outreach. I think you should basically take the initiative, share perspectives that I think that are missing. And again, my concern is about framing. George Lakoff, maybe you've heard of him, he's a famous linguist. He said, don't think about vanilla. You can't wipe something out by thinking about not thinking of it. If we want to wipe out hate, we shouldn't be talking about it. We should be talking about something else. You can't negate something by not saying we're not going to talk about it. There's a story in the Bible of Mr. Cole knows about the Amalekites. We're going to remember to forget the Amalekites because they were going to wipe out the Hebrews. And we remember them now and we still hate them, even though we were told to forget about them. You can't negate things by thinking about them. So I'm concerned again. I think we need to use the word hate and more use other words to describe what the problem is in our community. Thank you very much, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch, for your comment. And seeing no one else approaching the podium, I think we can conclude on public comment. And wrap up this item, I would just maybe offer a friendly amendment to Edgar's suggestion about the long-term calendar, maybe put this on the short-term calendar for further discussion at the next meeting. I think that would be appropriate. So thank you all for a very thorough discussion and all of the good work. Kate and Michael, Megan, Sheila, and Jenny, of course, as the representative of the many. So we are now at 8:40, which is 10 minutes past our scheduled adjournment. As I understand it, and Carrie will correct me, I believe we might need a motion to continue on the further agenda items. And I would suggest that maybe what we might do is try to have a short discussion on the last agenda item and then put over those remaining agenda items to the next meeting. But if we could wrap up on 6D, that would be my hope and suggestion that we do that sort of expeditiously. So if folks are willing, I would ask for a motion to extend the period of our meeting for the purpose of that additional discussion.
Kevin, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I understood what you were saying is that you would like to have item 6D and then item 7 and have item E move to a future agenda item, or would you rather have a motion for a certain time frame, like somebody extends, for 20 minutes or something like that?
I guess what I'm hoping is that we can have a 10-minute conversation on item 6D and let those go about their lives.
Did you want to have anything on the future agenda items long-range calendar? I have taken a couple of notes, so we can.
Yeah, I think we will need to revisit that, but I'm hoping that we can kind of wrap up. This is
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify what you were hoping for. Thank you.
I'm worried that 6D might take a little bit more time than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit more time than 10 minutes.
Okay, all I was hoping to do, and we don't need to do it, all I was hoping to do was to have a conversation about establishing those committees without discussing who, what exactly they would all be doing. But if, and I guess there's just a little bit of time sensitivity, I think, around the city holiday observances issue. And if it would be the will of the group to sort of maybe limit it to that item, because I think it's more time sensitive, that might be a potential compromise. Or we can adjourn.
I mean, with the time sensitivity, you're right. I mean, for those who don't know the history of it, yeah, if we push that off to the next meeting, we're not going to be able to have any type of influence over this year. We already may not have any influence as of this year, but yeah, we can briefly, I would say just limit it to that topic. 6D can easily be pushed because there was no meeting for me to attend to update on, so 6D can easily be passed off. So There you go, it's up to you.
I think that sounds like a workable compromise if folks are amenable.
So will we come back to this, the rest of D? Because I just want to make sure if we're going to cover part of D, we're clear that we will come back to D in more full ways next time.
Absolutely.
Great.
I wonder if for expediency's sake, it would be appropriate if we are going to push some of these things off, which is not my preference. I'd rather we stay here and got it done, but I understand that people have places to be and that we have a practice of ending pretty close to on time. But maybe it would be reasonable to have like a few bullet points of kind of what that subcommittee would do and what the history is or something, so that we don't spend a lot of committee time sort of explaining to new members what that subcommittee might do, because they couldn't possibly say if they want to be on that subcommittee at this point. That's what's going to take a while, I think. So I don't know. I would prefer we did them all, but I'm willing to go with just do the city holiday observances one. So if I see like a bunch of nods on that, then I will just motion. Okay. So I would be happy to motion at this point that we do, just from item D, we do the city holiday observances, explain what it is, see if we can create a subcommittee in a reasonable amount of time. And then, is it okay to skip the future agenda items? Like, is that not?
You could skip all of the rest of your items if you just wanted to.
Exactly.
So that's up to the will of the body. I just want to be specific as to the creation of subcommittees. You will have to actually have a task that you approve a subcommittee to do, unless you're creating a subcommittee to define a task and then come back at the very next meeting and then your commission is going to discuss that task. So it's really not about just a topic. You actually have to have a task for them to do.
All right, I motion that we modify the agenda for this evening and we just discuss city holiday observances, explain what it is, see if we can put together a subcommittee with an assigned task, and that culminates our meeting for today, and the rest of the meeting is postponed until our next meeting.
Okay, is there a second for Laney's motion? I'll second. Second by Edgar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So, Laney, would you be so kind, since I know you have some background on this particular issue, to maybe lead that conversation a little bit, at least get it started?
Yes, I would be happy to, and I would love it if Kate would jump in, because you've been thinking about this a lot longer than I have. But the understanding is that the city has already done a lot of work to make the winter celebration tree lighting non-denominational religiously. But I believe the conversation we've been tiptoeing around or sort of barely having over the past year and before that, before my time also, is how could we like actively acknowledge better as a community all of the different important celebrations that happen for people around that time, or how could we make some suggestions as to how that celebration could be felt more by more people. So I don't know, Kate, do you want to add anything to that? So like a subcommittee to explore what is already happening. The task would be review what already happens and then propose any additions or suggestions that might make that celebration fit the, bring in some elements that would make more people feel like their values are reflected, their beliefs are reflected at that time of year.
I would say you name two very well, Laney. I think that speaks to what we've been talking about over the years, sort of over many years. We brought it up. I would add, although it sounds like an extenuating suggestion, but I would also add maybe part of the charge is to understand how our community experiences that celebration, so that we're asking folks. I mean, I think we have a sense, but it's representative of the Christian hegemony in our society, and yet I think it would be good for that subcommittee to have some more than just what we have to say about it, but to do some research about how does our community experience that celebration, and what is it that we can either distill or understand about our community as a whole that would allow us to, I mean, maybe share suggestions, I don't know, it's recommendations, but how it could be done in a way that would honor all the members of the community.
I have a question, I guess, maybe before we continue, and that is, is it the sense of the group that you want to limit this conversation to the winter holidays specifically, or is this a more general topic? I mean, I heard, for example, there's been identification, and I think, Kate, you have mentioned this in the past. Jenny brought it up earlier about a calendar of days of cultural importance. I guess I'm just asking without making an argument for it.
So in recognition also, like I appreciate that the city would, put out a calendar like that, but like everything the city does, in my best understanding, which might not be that great, is that, I mean, nothing that the city would do would be intentionally religious, right? There's separation of church and state, and our city tries hard to honor that, and the tree lighting is not just Christian, and that was pagan before it was Christian, and anyway, it's been determined, I know, like legally, that it's just a cultural thing and not a religious thing. That being said, it still feels to some people like it's not. So anyway, I think we wouldn't be trying to do something like get the city to honor a bunch of religious holidays, because that's not really what this city is supposed to be doing. But so I think it's specifically about the winter holiday. And
Can I add really quickly? So with a different hat on, this is something that the Phoenix Coalition is doing or are trying to work, is having conversations about. Last year we did a skate rink. I don't know if anybody came out to that. And that was kind of the start of us. We had posters up that said these are all the different ways that you can celebrate winter holidays, or these are different ways that winter holidays are celebrated around the world. We'd like to take that further and have engagement, and maybe ask people as they come to share what they do or to ask questions. Or we haven't worked it out. But if you're working it out and we're working it out, it would be good maybe to have a conversation together. I also want to make clear, I'm not interested in making a community where Christians don't feel comfortable either, right? But I think by naming the fact that the underlying dominant culture is a Christian culture, and beginning to be able to separate out what are community celebrations that represent all of us, or each of us, or all the groups of us, is a step toward inclusion and belonging for everybody.
Further discussion about the task of this potential subcommittee?
So this is basically related to that, and also sort of long range, which we're not going to do now. So will this come back to the full commission at the September meeting, especially given the tight timelines, if there's any possibility of making any substantial changes this year? Or are we starting it now, but with the thought process that this is primarily going to come into play next year?
Yeah, good question, Connor. My suggestion would be that the subcommittee, once it might be established, convene expeditiously, and if possible, be able to, meet and give us some sense, and I think particularly start maybe having the conversation with city staff about the sort of limits of the possible given calendar this year. So
I would like to caution you about your expectations on this year. It might be more of a fact-finding year, small changes year. If you wanted to have a discussion as to stopping an event, completely changing an event, that might be a larger discussion, and we might need to have you propose the idea, the concept. Do you want us to work and spend time on this? And we might even, as staff, not feel comfortable making that decision and go to council with it. So that is a much bigger question. Small changes around the edges, and more of a acknowledgement, recognition, to kind of spread information, do a survey, something like that, seems very, very benign. I think any large change, just especially even logistically, some of the stuff takes a long, the preparation time is very long.
Zoe, I think you weren't present for our last meeting, but Edgar gave a very eloquent and impassioned exegesis of glacial geologic time frames. So I think
This is democracy in action.
we are prepared. Nevertheless, maybe we can start having a conversation and see what's possible. Okay.
Appreciating very much, Zoe, your explication of the, I think that I had your spoke to you last week or 2 weeks ago. And appreciation for the fact that I do think, although one wants action, I think really opening the conversation and understanding that this is a development of understanding of our city and who we are with each other and how we are as a corporate group of humans, that, I see very much as a process. And then if the subcommittee has a task, it is to host the conversation about it and help the city host a larger conversation, whether it's with officials, whether it's with citizens or members of the community, but that perhaps the subcommittee proposes how to host that conversation or something.
And kind of think about the whole topic that I've been hearing, the theme tonight is how are we going to do our outreach work? And this is like something that you really are interested in doing, you've been talking about doing. Give us some ideas of how do you want to hear from the community? What do they think? What do they feel about? What would they like to see? And take on this task for us.
Okay, further comments. I would like to hear from folks who would be interested in serving on the committee. I still want to call it a committee. It's not a subcommittee. It's a group within a committee. But nevertheless, committee / subcommittee. All right.
I'm happy to serve, but I know I don't really count as an
Well,
executive person.
you
So
do
I'm happy
indeed
to join a committee hosted
count.
by a committee member. How about that?
Yes, there can be up to 3 voting committee members and any number of ex officio members. And I think, Kate, you would be most welcome and appreciate it. Amir, we have 1 volunteer. Thank you, Amir. Are there others who are interested, willing to participate? I'm going to start, like, calling on people. I did used to be a teacher, too.
I'm willing. I was waiting for new people if they wanted to do it. I didn't need to, but I'm willing. If we need another person, I'm certainly
So
willing to
just one thing I wanted to bring up is that in the next meeting, we're going to have more of an opportunity to talk about subcommittees that we think should be on here. Like one that I know I will bring up is I think there should be a subcommittee for Hate Free Together. And so it's hard to say, I think, for people who have, want to make sure that they're not putting themselves on too many committees and not being able to be very productive and helpful. So I think putting people on the subcommittee right now makes me feel a little bit nervous because yes, I'd love to be on this committee, but I also don't know the committees that we are thinking, and we haven't had the opportunity to discuss those at all as this new group of commissioners.
Excellent point, and I think well taken, Dima. The work that we do is really just going to be limited by sort of our capacity and interests. And I don't know that it's possible to really have our arms around that fully. I hope that it continues to evolve and grow. And it may be that some committees are longer standing and others are kind of shorter. But there's technically no limit other than what we want to do. to the number of subcommittees and committees that we can create to work on different issues. And it really is the sort of functional body that is sort of most productive, because as you've probably already seen, there's a lot of constraint on what we are able to do as a group in the space that we have for our regular monthly meetings. So a lot of the real substantive work will hopefully be done in our smaller groups and brought back and ratified.
Well, I think it's helpful to define what does this subcommittee do. Like, they meet outside this meeting. You set the times that you want to meet. You set the duration you want to meet. So it's that small group that decides that. So if you have something that's coming up urgently, you can meet every week leading up to it. If it's a long-term thing, you can meet much more spread out. So it's really up to that group and how fast it moves.
Okay, just for one last clarification, if a subcommittee works on something, they come back to the group with their proposal. It's not anything binding or decisions made. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that has to be done with a full group, but it's really helpful to have that kind of smaller, more agile. Okay. I've heard Delaney, I've heard Amir, I've heard Kate, and if there is anyone else who is interested and willing, I think that is a perfectly acceptable group.
I am interested if no one else is.
Okay. Connor, you are absolutely welcome. So let's maybe leave it at that. I think the proposal would be that, in the form of a motion, that the subcommittee be created as with the task described and by Lenny, and with the following members: Lenny, Amir, Connor, and Kate. It sounded like.
I would love to propose that we create a subcommittee with the task of exploring community concerns and excitements about the current winter holiday celebration, and potentially thinking about long-range, larger changes, or potentially short-range, smaller changes to the winter holiday celebration. The subcommittee would consist of Kate and Connor and Amir and myself, Lainey.
Okay. So moved. I hear a second.
I will second.
Edgar seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wait, before we actually take the vote, maybe Connor is reminding me, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, that we should also allow for public comment on this point. And Mr. Hirsch is coming forward.
What is the point of making a public comment if you're giving your input after all the discussions are made?
Well, in this case, the point is simply to embarrass me, I think. But nevertheless, all public comment is welcome, and I apologize for my oversight. With that, there is a motion, second, and we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. With that, I believe we have concluded our business, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn is not debatable, if I recall from my rules of parliamentary procedure. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
Edgar moves.
I'll second.
Dima seconds. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your patience and your consistency and resilience and your good contributions.
Keeping track of your meeting.